The Iowa International Center Dialogue Series is a monthly educational program available at no cost to the public, thanks to the generous support of DuPont Pioneer and supporting sponsors. Dialogue events and videos offer a unique opportunity for our community to engage in and learn from important cultural conversations with international experts, and to draw on and highlight the extensive knowledge these individuals bring to our schools, workplaces, and community. For more information about the Dialogue Series and the Iowa International Center, please visit www.iowainternationalcenter.org.
And let me tell you who's coming up next. This dialogue series, and I should introduce myself. My name is Judy Conlin, and I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa International Center. This is the 5th year that we've been doing the Iowa International Dialogue Series. It's supported by DuPont Pioneer, by the Des Moines Library, by the Greater Des Moines Partnership, and by Drake University. And we have a series of wonderful speakers. In fact, we've booked through February of this year, and next time, typically it's the first Tuesday of the month. We moved this one to the second Tuesday because it was so close to Labor Day last Tuesday. And next time, it's October 7th, Tuesday, and Derek Wilson, who is the global practitioner in residence at Drake University, will be speaking on a topic that some of you are starting to hear more and more about, and that is the independence vote for Scotland, coming up September 18th. It will have happened at that point in time, and so he'll be commenting about that. A very interesting lecture. He's a law professor in France and a practitioner here this semester at Drake University. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to encourage you to take as many of the materials as you're interested in about both your chapter and services and the chapter at the Iowa International Center. Coming up on September 27th is Passport to Prosperity. If you don't already have your tickets, and I know many of you do, this is our signature event when we celebrate the contributions of immigrants and refugees. And it's an inspiring evening. It's also a fun evening. It starts at 6 o'clock on September 27th. We have it at Drake's campus because that's where we were founded back in 1938. And we were founded in 38 to support refugees fleeing Germany and Poland, as a matter of fact. It's a fun evening as well. There's a wonderful international dinner. Maddie Maxwell always takes a great deal of pleasure in helping to identify the menu. The dishes will reflect the 4 ethnicities of our wonderful honorees from China, from India, from Laos, and from Brazil. It's also a lot of fun. If you want to learn more about salsa, come at 6 o'clock for salsa lessons. If you want to be listening to wonderful piano music, if you just want to be enjoying the company of one another between 6 and 7, the reception, and then the dinner and the program starts at 7 o'clock. So there are invitations out there and information about Passport. So it's a little strange for me to begin as the speaker this time. Usually I'm introducing the speaker. But the reason we're speaking today, Rumbi, Chinhamhora, and myself, it was 2 years ago that I undertook a study of refugee resources. What resources were provided to refugees coming from Southeast Asia under the leadership of Governor Ray back in the 70s and 80s, and what resources are available to refugees today, and why the dramatic difference in resources. I think it's best explained by telling you just about 2 situations. Mai and her family fled Saigon literally the day it fell, April 30th, 1975. And they were among the first group of refugees that were greeted at the Des Moines International Airport on an fall October day. It was a little chilly that day, so the volunteers came with extra coats, extra sweaters, and they took Mai and her family to a fully furnished 3-bedroom home. And the volunteers and the church involved in fully furnishing that 3-bedroom home with beds and sofas, toys for the children, dishes, groceries, took a great deal of pride in the furniture. It was all very, very nice. And the volunteers were there every day, taking Mai's mother to get her Social Security number, teaching the family how to grocery shop, taking them for ESL classes, taking them for doctor's appointments. And it wasn't just that the volunteers were dropping in and out of their lives. These are people who've become friends and sustained a friendship now for over 35 years. So that's one situation 35 years ago. Another situation, I visited many, many refugee apartments and homes, and I'm thinking of Mu, whose apartment is way north on MLK. And I went to visit Mu, originally from Burma or Myanmar. She and her husband have been in Des Moines since 2009. They have 6 children. They had 7, but one of their children died. They're in a substandard apartment complex, complete with bed bugs. They're paying over $800 in rent, plus utilities. Neither Mu or her husband, who's working in meatpacking, speak English. I come with a volunteer, a wonderful volunteer, Jane, and I also come with someone who speaks Qurani because I do not. So I'm sitting in Mu's apartment, and I look at a stack of mail, all unopened. Why open it if you don't read English? Most of it from DHS. They might have been eligible for some services had they been able to open and read the mail. Coincidentally, when we're in Mu's apartment, the telephone rings, and with her permission, the interpreter answers it. It's from the school to let her know her 16-year-old son is absent again. He's playing hooky. Mu and her husband's children are learning English in school. Mu and her husband are not learning English, and I can't even begin to explain how problematic it is, the gap between parents and children, and how marginalized parents and certainly grandparents have become and how isolated. So this wonderful volunteer, Jane, said to Mu, I know you want to learn English, and I know several of your friends here want to learn English. Tell you what, there's an ESL class down at First Christian Church. This is on Drake's campus. Get a bus, and you and your friends go down and take ESL classes. And Jane said, I'll even pay for 15 of the $25. And Mu wanted to be grateful, and she was gracious, but she thought about it briefly and thought, I don't have $38 for the bus pass. I don't have the other $10, but I also don't have childcare. How can I go from way north on MLK down to First Christian Church and have all of that taken care of? I can't. So those are 2 very different situations, and the situations are different for a number of different reasons. And let me go back and kind of review what has happened in the last 35, 40 years. Let me begin by talking about Governor Ray, an incredibly strong leader, a visionary, and also somebody who was an educator and very well informed. I think it's important to remember that Governor Ray was totally familiar with opinion polls, and he knew the opinion polls in Iowa back in the 1970s. 52% were opposed to welcoming refugees to Iowa. Many people said, we have to take care of our own. He understood that. He was also very aware that, and because he was told, if you make this refugee thing an issue, you're probably not going to get reelected in 1978. In spite of that, maybe because of that, Governor Ray put it this way, and I quote him, we have 2 choices. We can turn our backs, or we can reach out a hand to provide freedom and a new life. He explained to Iowans, this is not a welfare program, this is a jobs program. This is about economic development, and it's about being in a new kind of world. As he said, we are part of the world and we cannot isolate ourselves. What Governor Ray did was not only educate us as Iowans, he inspired us. 30 different Iowa communities became involved in the refugee movement. Lamoni, Clinton, Burlington, Fort Dodge, Denison, Cedar Rapids, Mason City, Ames, Marshalltown. Thousands of sponsors and volunteers became involved. And as you could tell from the story about Mai, they didn't become involved just briefly, but their involvement was sustained, and the friendships have been sustained. Hundreds of churches became involved, offering donations of not only money, but furniture and clothing, toys. We had over 30 VISTA workers in Iowa. 78 of our 99 counties had tutorials, ESL instruction, life skill instruction. Think about that, 78 of our 99 counties. And very significantly, we also provided over 5 years of cash and medical assistance to refugees who were resettled here. Today, we provide 90 days. 90 days, we'll have your rent covered, and then good luck. Hope you know some English. Hope you got a job because you need to start paying your rent. Well, between 1975 and 1982, we resettled almost 5,000 refugees from Southeast Asia. They really came in 3 different groups: the Thai Dam, then the Laotians and Vietnamese, the so-called boat people, and then the Cambodians. At his last news conference, Governor Ray, January 1983, said, and I quote, "I perhaps am the luckiest guy in the world to be given the opportunity to help somebody." Governor Branstad took office then in January of 1983 and promised to continue the support for refugees. We added 3 more VISTA workers. The Department of Bureau of Refugees became a Bureau of Services. In 1987, we started welcoming refugees and resettling refugees from Poland and Czechoslovakia and Hungary. In 87, we resettled our first families from Romania. In 92, the Department of Refugee Services was notified by the U.S. Department of State that they were the highest-ranking refugee resettlement office in the country, a moment of great pride. In 1993, we started welcoming our first Bosnian families. In 1995, the Bureau provided bilingual and ethnic-specific programs for the Sudanese who were coming and being resettled in Iowa. So things were moving, and at the same time, they were moving in the right direction. They were also moving in the wrong direction. The medical and cash assistance programs that were available in the late 1970s up until 1982, 5 years of assistance, dropped from 5 years to 36 months in 1982. Then it dropped to 18 months. Then it dropped to 12 months. And by 2004, it was 8 months of eligibility for some assistance. As I mentioned, the service for rental, 90 days. There were a lot of stressors being placed on refugee services and refugees themselves. The recession, of course, of 2008 made it increasingly difficult to get a job. The post-roll raid of 2008 I mentioned because although we're talking about immigrants, different from refugees, almost 400 immigrants were arrested for being illegal in the post-roll raid. What happened is that meat packers needed legal work, and refugees, by virtue of being legal, started to be recruited. So if I'm a refugee and I arrive in Los Angeles or Dallas or New York, I'm not mandated to stay there. I'm going to go where the jobs are. And so increasingly we have refugees recruited to Iowa in meatpacking and other unskilled labor because they are illegal. So we have over 7,000 Burmese or Myanmar people. And with the recruitment of many more refugees, we have much more diversity in our refugee population. Burmese or Myanmar, 137 different languages, different cultures, they don't understand one another. And the diversity is even wider than that. The skill level, the education, the expectations. I was sitting in one ESL class, and to my right, there's a couple from Iraq in their 50s. He's a writer. She taught history in Baghdad for many, many years. On my left is Hannah, who spent her entire life in a refugee camp in Thailand, originally from Myanmar. The high school teacher and the writer are going to be able to learn English and bring skills with them that Hannah doesn't, because she's pre-literate and she doesn't even know the alphabet in her own language. We have fewer and fewer ESL classes. Housing is increasingly difficult to find, longer lines for subsidized housing, greater and greater gaps between the generations, fewer and fewer sponsors. Family patterns are very much disrupted. I could talk a lot about the stressors, but there isn't anybody who can talk more meaningfully about the stressors than somebody who came as a refugee from Zimbabwe and arrived at the Des Moines International Airport in September of 2008. And I thank you, Rumbi Chinhamhora, for joining me today. And Rumbi, if you would share your story.
Thank you for having me today. As Judy said, I arrived in Iowa 2008 September, and I came alone because I'll just give you briefly where I came from. I was a Zimbabwean politician, and I had to flee because of political differences with my country. And when I was fleeing, I went to Botswana and I was put in prison for treason. And I was disabled, I had back injuries, I couldn't walk, and I was not getting treatment. So when I was in prison, there were some Americans that visited prison because America has got a lot of programs in Botswana that they sponsor. So one of the United Nations workers there, an American, came to me and we started talking. In that prison, we were more than 30 women and from different cultures, and I was lucky to be one of the few that spoke English, so I managed to speak to her. So I told her my story, where I came from and what had happened to me, and she was looking at me gaping because she couldn't believe that things like that still happen. I told her of how I was raped as a way to discipline me because the government thought I was too outspoken, because when I was 14 I was raped and I had a kid. So fast forward, when I was in my 20s and I became a politician, I was speaking against women abuse and against rape. So when I was tortured, one method of torturing was rape, because they knew how much I abhorred that. So when I told her that, she went away. She didn't tell me that she was going to do something about it. 8 months later in prison, I heard that Americans have decided to take you out of prison and they'll take you with them to America. Let me tell you the America that I know. I know the America that I see someone who lives in a 4-bedroom apartment. I'll give you an example of Julia Roberts when she was in the movie. I'm forgetting the name of the movie, where she was fighting against a company that was polluting the water. Yes. In that movie, it portrayed a poor single woman. I was a single woman, and I said, if I am going to be a poor single woman and I'm living that life, I can take America. So that's the kind of concept and the mind that I had before I left Africa. So when I was told you are going to United States, they told me when I was in orientation that we know we are never going to be able to take away the pain. We are not going to be able to take away what happened to you. We cannot undo it. But one thing we can promise you, we are taking you to the land of honey. We are taking you to the country where all dreams will come true. We are taking you to a country where all the people will make sure that you will forget about your past, because you are going to have a great future. So I was excited. I was looking forward to it. And I thought, this is the time for healing. I'm going to be concentrating on my healing. And I've seen a lot. I don't know where they get their themes, movies. I haven't seen that life they have on the movies. I don't know where they get it from. So the movie themes is always when you come out of that situation, you get through therapy and you have your neighbors bring pie and they come and see you and you have this wonderful neighbor who loves you so much. That's the kind of America that I thought I'm coming to. So fast forward, I went through the whole process, 2 years. Actually, it's because of my background, they had to check whether I won't be a threat to United States. So I went through all that security screening and they said, now we can certify you are fit to come to America. I arrived at the airport, and as I was going down the escalator, I was looking around, expecting to see at least a family to meet me so that they will introduce me. I was coming from a country where we have cultural differences. So in my expectation, I worked for United Nations before. So my expectations were I was going to be given a family that's going to take me in, and they are going to help me to get to understand the culture. So when I arrived in at Des Moines Airport, there was one guy. He was standing there with his hands in his pocket, and he looked at me and he said, "Are you Rumbi?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "I'm going to be your caseworker. Get in the car." So my bags, I had lost my bags because, as you know, my name is so long that it's always randomly picked to get my bags searched by intelligence, always. So actually last time I traveled, I put a piece of paper in there that since you are going to randomly search my bag, make sure that you put my perfume exactly where you found it. And they did pick it, and he put a smiley face on it. So my bag was taken away, and so when I came, I had no clothes, I had nothing on me, and the caseworker drove me to an apartment downtown, and he said, "This is your home. I'll see you tomorrow." And he left after 10 minutes. A new country, new environment. I didn't know anything. I walked into the apartment. There was a broken desk at the corner with a chair, this type of chairs. And the corners were like kind of peeling off because it was wood. And in the bedroom, there was a single bed with gray sheets. I like pretty things. You can see with my colors I'm wearing. I like bright, pretty things. I come from Africa, mind you. So there I was with gray sheets, and because I have a deep voice, somebody thought I was a man. So I had shaving cream, I had men deodorants, and aftershave. There was smelly, bath soap that I couldn't even use. I don't even know how men can stand that. So there I was. I went into the kitchen. They had done a great job. They had bought one huge chicken, and I said, "There, you know Africans, right there." They had a huge roasted chicken, and there was one pot, one pan, spoons, 2 spoons, forks, and a side dish. That's all. I didn't have, there was no bowl for cereal. So I needed to have cereal since it was jet lag. It was already morning in Africa. So when I went in there, I couldn't even find a bowl to have some cereal. So I had to have them from the pot. The caseworker didn't come back to see me because Lutheran Services for Refugees had already started cutting on their staff. So these caseworkers had so many people. They were the same people who would have to take them to the doctors because some of them needed interpretation. So the unfortunate part about me, the moment they knew that I can speak English, I was on my own. So 2 days, fortunately, I was seated outside, and John, he is the friend who introduced me to Judy, came over. He was coming to see someone he thought was coming from Iraq. Iraq, they are very fortunate because they have a community here. They have friends for Iraq. I am the only Zimbabwean that came through the refugee program. The Zimbabweans that come to United States are rich. Why? Because they come and go to schools like Drake, where they have to be going to school, paying $35,000 and also paying their rentals. So they need to have a family that can afford to give their children $50,000 per year. So we don't come from same social backgrounds. So I had not met any Zimbabweans yet. When I met John, he then introduced me to some people, and I ended up getting to meet people like Judy. But I made a vow that day that they are doing it to the wrong person, because I'm a fighter. I have survived the torture. I have survived everything. This is not going to put me down. So as much as I was a fighter, there were so many things that were against me that I would rise up and think that the day is going to be different, but I'll come back home crying. Why? I started applying for a job. I would apply and they would not respond. I would apply and they would not respond. Then one day, I said enough is enough. I'll quickly tell you what Judy was referring to. When they say we were getting cash assistance, here is how it was broken down. You would get $186. From the $186, you pay $106 towards your rental, because Lutheran Services for Refugee would pay part of your rental. And then from what remains, the $80, you pay your phone. That will be, it was subsidized because of Question agreement with Lutheran Services. So you'd pay like $15. You'd pay your water from there, and you'd pay your electricity from there. I remember 10 days after I got here, I had $8 in my pocket after I had paid all that. So I needed a job because I had left a 5-week-old baby in Africa who needed formula milk, and nobody could afford to give him formula milk. So I called this company, and the recruiter didn't call me back, and I said, you know what? I understand my accent is very thick. Your answering machine is having problem with catching my messages, so you are not getting them. What I'm going to do is, in the next 1 to 2 days, every 10 minutes, I'm going to leave you a message, in the hope that one of those messages, you are going to understand them. Because I don't understand why you are not calling me back. I can give you that excuse. Your machines are not hearing me well. So I'll make sure that I will call you. So I called 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. After 30 minutes, he called me back, and I got the job right away. I started working, and then later I started working for Wells Fargo. But the things that I want to talk to you about most is, when I was going through all that process before I was gainfully employed, I'm happy that James is here. I didn't know he was going to come. James is my witness. When I started applying to Wells Fargo, to get into Wells Fargo, there are so many things that you face as a refugee and as an immigrant that sometimes we don't share them because you don't want to sound like you are complaining. But I'm saying this now because there's somebody who witnessed it. When I first applied for Wells Fargo, the recruiter, after I did the job interview, I was one of the best. I didn't get the job. James was the manager there, and he asked her, why didn't you hire her? And she said she's overqualified. There I am, a refugee sleeping on gray sheets. And I have a kid back home who needs formula milk. and you tell me I'm overqualified to get a job that pays me $12? Is that real? And they knew. I explained to her, yes, I had a very good job. Yes, I know that I can do better, but I have to start somewhere. Not only that, I got a job from someone else 6 months later in Wells Fargo. I met the same recruiter 2 years later when I was applying for a different position. Instead of me being interviewed by a normal manager in a normal process, I was interviewed at the lobby, right at the entrance of the visitors lobby. That's where I had interviews. The reason why I knew this was not normal, at the end of the interviews, I said, can I have your name so that I can send you thank you letters? And the girls started shivering, and I said, can I have your names? And they said, we are sorry, we are just feelers. We are not even supposed to be interviewing. If the management hears we're here, we are going to be in trouble. And I said, so did I even have a chance at all? So already I was rejected before the person had even met me. Because the reason is when a resume gets into the system, what picks the resume is not a person. It's a computer. So I was good enough for the computer. But when she saw my resume, she still felt I was still not good enough. So those are the kind of things that we face. And then sometimes, I'll tell you something very funny. I told Judy that Iowans are the politest people I have ever met. You're not rude, guys. You're very polite. But you're not welcoming. The reason why I say that is, Iowans, even when you live among them and they know where you come from and they know you have no family, they don't reach out to you. Do you know how we feel during Thanksgiving when you are carrying your huge turkeys? I can afford to buy a turkey. But trust me, it's not in the turkey. It's in who you are going to spend time with. You can go for years without anyone saying, I have my neighbor here, this is a refugee, has got 2 little kids, they have no one. Can they just join us for turkey? If you want me to pay for the meal, I'll pay you. Ask any immigrant and refugee, holidays are the waste time. Because Americans are holiday lovers. They gather with their families, they play games, and I'll be seated out there. I cook the meal and we look at it with my kids and we cannot even eat it. Why? Because my mother is not allowed to come to the US. The reason is she's not rich enough. When she goes for the interview to come to the US, the person who interviews her asks the question, how many properties do you have in Africa? And my mom would say none. How much money do you have in the bank? And my mom would say none. How old are you? I'm 76. You are not fit to come to the US. You don't have money, you don't have property, you are not rich, so we think you may migrate, and we don't want immigrants. My mom last time she went 6 times. She went and said, look here, I have my friends here. I cannot convert them into money. I have my grandchildren. They are my riches. I will not come and live in America. I just want to see my grandchildren. But you know what? That's not good enough. So while I am seated out there with everyone having fun at Christmas and Thanksgiving, I'm thinking of my mom back home, who's somebody who's sitting behind the desk and look at her and say, she's not worthy. And when people look at us, some think, oh yeah, our government is wasting their money. Why should we bother about other people? And that weighs on my shoulder. That's what forced me this touch screen is not working. That's what forced me to work so hard that within 2 years I bought my own house, because the apartment I was living in, 3 months after I got there, it broke down. There was sewage water that was coming from the apartment above me. All my clothes were soiled. That apartment, the beds, that single bed I was given had bed bugs. Some of these marks are from the bed bugs bites that I got after I came to the US. And those are the things that we face. So if you look at me, somebody who can speak English, somebody who can go to work, somebody who has the tenacity to push a recruiter and say, give me the job. Can you think of what a refugee who doesn't speak English, who grew up in a refugee camp with no education, who doesn't have a television? I knew a bit of what I was going to see because I used to see it on television. But these refugees, when they come, some of them, the first time that they are, that's the first time they are seeing a street light. Some of them, that's the first time they are using a stove. And there you are next door living among them. And when you see them, you feel good about yourself. Maybe you carry a bag of food and give them. Yeah, that's good. But offer them friendship. Get to know them. Allow your kids to be friends with them. You know how much it breaks my heart every time when my son comes and say, everyone else goes to birthday parties, but why am I not invited? I can afford to pay my kid a birthday present even if he goes to 20 birthday parties, but he's never invited to one. Why? Because Iowa is a very closed community and they live among themselves. They don't allow anyone else to come in. That's why I said you are not rude, you are not cruel. I have had a few incidences, of course, where people mistreated me. I've had a few situations where there was racism, but I would tell you those are better than being ignored, because that I can put it to ignorance. But when you are being ignored and you have people around you, Iowans are known for being sweet, but ask me, ask refugees are among you, do we think you're sweet? Yeah, but you're sweet to each other. So I am challenging you today. You may not have money. People think it's all up to people like Bill Gates and the Oprah. But even us, let me tell you how excited my kids were 2 years ago when one family invited us for Easter. My son from Monday, he was counting the days because you rarely get to go to anyone's house. He was so excited that somebody felt that he was worthy to visit their homes. So I'm challenging you today. Just reach out. You may not be able to give them any material things. We are hard workers. I worked for myself. I worked very hard and I bought that little house. But I'm telling you, even if I didn't have that house, if someone would have offered me their friendship, their love, I would have forgotten about not having all that. When I hear Judy right now telling me that when families came like 30 years ago, they would have sponsors and friends, my heart breaks, because now we have no one. We have a few people that have offered themselves to us as friends. But let me tell you, some of this friendship, it's on condition that you are one of the cutest people. Why am I saying that? You're not allowed to make an error. If you have anything bad that you do, they flee away from you like you are a plug. You need to be perfect. They need to pet you and speak about you to their friends. I have this refugee that I'm helping, and they are not doing it for you, they are doing it to make themselves feel good. But just offer genuine friendship. Yes, they may not end up being as close as the people you went to school with or the people you grew up with, but if you can just once in a while allow your kids to play with them, invite them, ask them, the things that we need assistance with are less material, more friendship. And I hope I have touched one or two people's hearts, and when you leave this place, you're going to look for one immigrant that you'll become a friend to. Thank you.
I think it's easier not to have Ruby talk to us, to have somebody else talk to us and make it all seem better than it is. And I don't think, I don't have answers to all of your questions, but I think what Ruby's talking about is the isolation that refugees and immigrants feel, and we're not even aware of it. Or if we become aware of it, then we don't act upon it. And it's not a matter of finger pointing. To me, I ask myself, why? Why are we polite but not as welcoming as we think of ourselves or want ourselves to be? And for me, I just look in the mirror and ask each of us just to look in the mirror. How welcoming am I? How generous am I? How numbed am I, or how numbed are all of us as we look on the television at the millions of refugees fleeing Iraq and Syria, Sierra Leone, Congo, Darfur? You know, are we desensitized by that? Are we overwhelmed by it? We might be, but we can do something. And what Rumbi is talking about, she is a strong woman. She is a courageous woman, and she's an articulate woman and a persistent woman. But as she talks about the majority of the refugees who are coming, who don't speak English, who are pre-literate, they don't even know their own alphabet. They've been in refugee camps on average 19 years. So I'm going to talk very briefly about some of the things that the Iowa International Center is doing in response to refugee services, and then Rumbi and I will take questions together. And so I'm going to turn to just a PowerPoint, what the Iowa International Center has been doing for the last several years is trying to provide additional resources for refugees and for immigrants. We put together a Welcome to Iowa guide. This is in 8 different languages, and this is thanks to the Business Record who designed and printed it for us and put it up. You can bring copies of that. Then we took this Welcome to Iowa guide and we put it up in a separate website, Welcome to Iowa website, in 80 different languages now. So if you want to learn, how do I get a driver's license? What kinds of vaccinations do my children need to go to school? Where do I get them? Where do I get them at low-cost clinics? On and on and on. I would invite you to go to that website, and if you have updates, corrections, send them just directly to me. We can put them up. It's a living, breathing website that we want to continue. We also provide a 24/7 emergency line. This is in 220 languages. All you need to do is call our office, 282-8269, and you'll be directed to that 220 languages. Because the languages are exploding, and you'll be connected for an emergency service within 5 minutes. We also have accessible ESL classes. I talked about MOO, living out with children without transportation. So what we're doing is bringing ESL classes to where the students, mainly our target population, the parents and the adults who otherwise are not able to learn English. And Channel 13 recently did a piece on this, and I'm going to ask us, take a look at this piece. It tells better what we're doing in our ESL classes than I can in words. so we're very pleased to be doing those programs out of Deer Ridge, and we have Terry Digest is here. Terry is the key to the success at Deer Ridge. She is a teacher, a social worker. She makes sure that the refugees get to class, that they all get calls. She's doing a wonderful job with the assessments, and I don't know how many refugees and immigrants you found jobs for, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. So thank you, Terry. That's a little bit about what we're doing. Nobody's doing enough, and we're trying to coordinate with other groups. It isn't just refugees, it's refugees and immigrants. But I know you want to have questions, and I'm going to ask Rumbi to join me, and we'll try to answer the questions that you have. Arden.
I don't know exactly how it was organized, but when the Southeast Asians came with under Ray's administration, at least in our case, we welcomed the refugee family with our church, the Methodist Church in Webster City, where we lived at the time. And I think a lot of people were brought in that way. I remember going to the airport and bringing this family to Webster City. I don't know how that was all put together, but I think it was an administration that was really geared to help the people that came. And I think there's a big difference between then and now in terms of what the administration is doing.
Yes, and Governor Ray put together a very comprehensive task force. And so many of the things that I mentioned, the churches, the volunteers, the tutorials, all of those kinds of things were put together. So there was a comprehensive statewide plan. You're right. And it is.
Was interested in, I mean, several people were interested in the family.
Right.
And helped them to get acclimated, get a place to live, get furniture.
Right.
And eventually get work. So I don't know how, if that kind of thing can be reinstituted with the present attitudes of the present administration, but we need our entire system to embrace refugees, to embrace immigration. And it seems to me that it's being used politically in a negative way.
Yes.
Now.
Do you have any comment about that?
I understand mostly, as you say, the administration, but I think the constraints the economy has had on people's families, that it's causing a lot of people to become more selfish. Not really selfish would be a hard word, but people are more concerned about what their close-knit family, how they can help their own family, that I don't know whether, if the administration say we are opening doors, whether they did close them. I don't know whether they did say families are no longer allowed to sponsor, because when I came as a refugee, I thought I had a sponsor, because that's what I knew from way back, that you had sponsors. But I realized that Iowa Refugee Services is still there. They still welcome sponsors, but they just don't get them anymore. So I don't know whether it's the administration, or is that because of the economy, people are pulling out from helping.
Or a combination.
I think we need to remember that this is how our grandparents came as immigrants.
Yes. Thank you. Other questions of Rumbi or myself? Anybody? Do you have a question? Yes.
This isn't a question, but I wanted to tell you that our church has an international service, and every Sunday, and the people, a lot of them are from Africa. I know some are from Kenya and some other places.
What is your church?
It's the Valley Evangelical Free Church in West Des Moines.
Let me tell you what I think about that. I'm well known for speaking my opinion anyway. What I think about that, I've gone to churches that do that. They gather refugees and they put them in a corner and they have their own services and they are called a refugee church, and once in a while they go to them and say, woohoo, we have these refugees. But how many people are really involved in their lives? I was going to a church like that has a church called Burundians, and I ended up having friends from the main church because I spoke English, so I could go to the main church, and some of them have never even talked to that. The church would take money from the church and sponsor them in terms of allowing them to use the building. If they have issues like they cannot pay their mortgage, sometimes give them assistance. But really, Christians getting involved in their lives, from what I hear from refugees, even the churches that do that, it's very hard. The reason that I have found is sometimes people are very uncomfortable with things they don't understand. Americans are too politically correct. They are scared of being sued. I'll give you one quick example. I've gained weight about 110 pounds since I came to the US because GMO. Back home we have organic. So my husband sent me some underwear from Africa for Valentine's Day, and they were too small. So we were talking on Skype the whole Valentine's night, and I slept for only 2 hours. So when I got up, I wanted to take a shower. So I grabbed the next thing, and it was my underwear. I wrapped it in my hair. And trust me, I went to my car, I drove to work, I walked into the building, and it was around 8. Lots of people saw me with that underwear in my hair. Nobody said anything.
That's politically correct.
Because they are scared that if they say something to me, I may sue them. But can you imagine the embarrassment I felt after it fell down and I was sitting on my chair and I looked at, and I thought because I drove my kids to school, I thought of all the people that met me and saw me and knew that's an underwear, and they didn't say anything. So people stay away sometimes because they don't want to get themselves in trouble. So they do have the heart to help and have those little churches that are international churches, but most of them, from my experience, from what I hear, even the main board church doesn't really get involved in those. Can I ask you, do you know at least the 3 families that you have visited or they have visited you? No. Why? Because you do, when it's time to give, you give the money, and you understand the church is very good at making sure that they get the money, but people keep themselves to themselves because they don't want to be sued one day because they say something wrong. Those are the things that I have experienced, that most of the people, it's not that they are rude, but it's just that we are now living in a world where you have to be so careful where you step. Fortunately with me, I can step whatever way I step, and I tell them, 36 years of doing that, I can't change. But I know with you guys that sometimes it's hard. But maybe making little efforts would help.
Well, may I say something?
Sure.
The reason I brought this up because I thought you would like to be able to associate with some people from Africa.
No, I don't. I fled from Africa and came to the US. I want to live because let me tell you, I know other African people that are living in neighborhoods that have only Africans, and most of them have 15 years without buying a house. I took myself down from there, and I live in the suburban there in Ebendale, and I'm the only black person in 6 blocks. Why? I want to be challenged. I want to have a dream of the person next door to me. This one, if I am an African and sitting right there, he didn't didn't leave even a cow back home or even a hen. So when I buy a loaf of bread, that's development for him. When he buys a pair of shoes, that's development for him. So when I live among them, I will feel comfortable because I have my little car, and everyone, when they want to go out to Chinese, I take them with me because I'm the one who has got a car. I want to live in a neighborhood where I feel challenged, where I feel I need to do better, where I feel I need to rise up, I need to continue to work and emulate the people in my neighborhood. That's why I don't like to continue to live with the same African mentality when I am in the US. I meet Africans once in a while. I do go to their gatherings, but I don't want to live with them. I want to live with you so that I see how you did it. How did you make it? Yes. Yeah, I'm talking about the people here. I want to live among you so that I learn from you. I understand America from your point of view than for me to understand it from the point of view of somebody who has got a cutlet in their eye.
Don't come to our church because and they invite us to come, and I plan to come because I want to meet some more of them.
Yes.
I want to learn about where, you wouldn't want to meet me because I want to know more about where you came from.
Yes.
Yes.
Tell me that.
I'll be welcome with that. I have met John, I've met Judy. I talk about, what I'm talking about is I've heard a lot of people who think keeping Africans in a seclusion would help them because they are among themselves. That's why they continue to live on social welfare. Because when I first came, those are the ideas I was given. Don't get a job that is over 25,000 because you're going to go off social security, to go off food stamp. Make sure that when you do this, you don't do that because you're going to lose your Medicaid. Why? Because they are living among themselves. But when I started living among Americans and I saw a struggling mother who is earning 30,000, who is a single parent just like me, and she's making ends without the social welfare, without the human services, that's what I dream to do. And that's what I emulate. Than for me to be told tricks of how to go around it.